Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Ask Raghav. Today I have a special guest with me. I have been getting a lot of questions on security testing, especially from a lot of beginners who want to start with security testing. So I thought, why not bring somebody who has been working into security testing? And today I have Asad with me. Asad, thank you so much for joining. And I'm really glad that you could join this session of Ask Raghav. So I will have some basic questions that are asked to me by a lot of my viewers, and I hope you will be able to answer them all. So welcome again to my channel.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you a lot for inviting me to your channel. You're doing a great job, especially for the testing community. Your content is so knowledgeable, and I myself watch your tutorials and videos and find them very helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Asad. That means a lot to me. And I will, we can directly start with the questions.
Mhm.
So the questions we are going to take today are the very basic questions on security testing that are asked by you. So the questions that we are going to take today is, number one, what is security testing? Number two, how to start with security testing for complete beginners. Uh, Again, number three is a kind of connected question, how a beginner should start learning what are the tools, platforms, frameworks, both free and licensed tools. Then we have mindset of for security testing. This is very important, how to have a
Yeah.
mindset for a penetration tester or a security tester, and then things to take care. So Asad, let us start with the very first question, that is, what is security testing?
Yeah. To simplify it in very simple words, security testing is a type of non-functional testing that is performed to find flaws in security mechanisms and finding the vulnerabilities or weakness of software applications. Vulnerabilities like SSL pinning, injections, all kind of injections, denial of service, cross-site scripting, brute force, anything, and many more. So security is an important aspect while developing mobile or web applications. It has to be, and it has to be started from the initial level. When you are developing the application, you have to make sure that your code is secure and you do not left any loophole behind. There are also tools available for this which ensure the code quality and get code security, but irrespective of the domain of the application which you are testing, because the general perception is that security is only important for payments applications or where there any kind of financial transactions are involved. So they are very very important, these applications, but at the same time they are also important for other general applications where no such financials are involved. So people usually relate security to a financial loss, but it is much more than that. Take data leakage, for example. It is a common example of a security threat that is harmful in any application, as this is the user's personal information that should be protected and must not be vulnerable to attacks. It could be any sensitive information like the social security number, passport number, etc., that in any way can harm the user. So, other than this, the responsibility, if I briefly talk about the responsibility of performing security testing, the responsibility differs in organizational. In some cases, it is performed by in-house Q engineers. Some organizations outsource it to any audit company as well, as they may believe that they do not have the necessary resources and tools to perform, and they want a detailed pen test to be performed on their system. So they opt for any audit company and they provide them detailed technical report with all the vulnerabilities, their severity, impact, etc., which helps them to resolve those issues. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is what security testing is.
Great. Thank you so much, Asad. So, just to rephrase whatever you have said for the complete beginners on my channel, I will just say that uh, we have functional testing and then we have non-functional testing. So, functional testing is where you are testing the actual functionality, the user scenarios. For example, you are testing a login scenario. So, you will create a test where you will have steps to add or enter a username, enter a password, click on login, and then see the result. And you can have multiple sets of data, positive, negative, what happens when you enter wrong password or username. So all this will be a part of functional testing. But then we have non-functional testing, where we test the non-functional aspects of the application, and then performance, load, compatibility, security testing, all these comes as part of the non-functional. And
Yeah.
specifically for security, we check all these things, that how secure is the application, is it susceptible to any vulnerability or attacks from hackers. And actually when we do security testing or penetration testing, we actually try to hack the application. We work as an ethical hacker because we are permitted to do that testing. So we try to hack the application and see what are the vulnerabilities. Am I right, Asad? Anything to add here?
Yeah, and we try to perform hacking, but obviously in a controlled environment
Yeah.
and with proper heads up and permission from all the stakeholders. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So that brings me to the second question, Asad. That is, for the complete beginners. I will just combine the second and the third question.
Mhm.
For complete beginners, how to start security testing, and what are the tools, platforms, and frameworks available, both licensed and free. And I believe most of the people who want to start with will be more interested to know the free or the community editions first, so that they can start exploring and then go on with the paid tools. So how a beginner should start, what are the tools and platforms?
Yeah. If you are already a tester, obviously you should be, and you have a good experience in software testing, then you can also start with security testing as well. You should have basic knowledge of at least major vulnerabilities that you can exploit in all applications, in any application like injection, cross-site scripting, DDoS, brute force attack, all kinds of man-in-the-middle attacks, self-pinning, etc. You can read and learn about these attacks and vulnerabilities on oasp.org, owasp.org. It is a very informative website, and it can provide you a lot of information and useful information that you can learn. And you can also explore our top 10 security risks as well. So sound theoretical knowledge of these vulnerabilities is very important. You cannot just glance and just look at a vulnerability or attack on the internet and start exploiting it with the help of any tool. Every vulnerability you must have to understand this, that every vulnerability has its own impact on the software. You should know the impact of the vulnerability, its remediation, its overall impact, and its impact on your system. That is very important. So if we talk about a beginner should start by looking at the URL of your URL of the website or of the endpoint that he or she is testing. The one major aspect that ensures the security of any application is the HTTPS. Check if your website is transmitting data over HTTP or is it transmitting data over HTTPS. Start from learning the difference between them. I would simply say unsecured and secured. If you are using HTTP protocol, it is easier to breach the security as data information being transmitted is in plain text, and the information sent is in encrypted form. HTTP operates on application layer. HTTPS operates on transport layer (TLS). No certificate is required in HTTP. On the other hand, HTTPS uses TLS as a certificate to ensure authentication. HTTP is subject to man-in-the-middle attacks and eavesdropping attacks. HTTPS is designed to resist these attacks and is considered secure against such attacks. The S in HTTPS is secure socket layer (SSL). It takes care of ensuring that the data goes securely over the internet. This made man-in-the-middle attack increasingly difficult as the data sent is no longer in plain text. But that doesn't always mean that we cannot temper any request or response and eventually perform a successful man-in-the-middle attack. We still can if SSL pinning is not implemented. Now we can discuss what SSL pinning is in this session as well, or in upcoming sessions as you want to proceed, Raghav.
Yeah, Sat. So I think we can keep this session very basic, and then we can
Yeah,
take this conversation and discussion forward in the coming sessions, where we can take up
sure.
like SSL pinning, or specific terms and uh, technologies related to security
Mhm.
testing, and all those things. So I think this is good for a beginner to start. You can very very basic thing is, you can start looking at the URL of your application. If it is web application, then does your URL has HTTP or HTTPS? S is the secure part. So you should have the HTTPS URLs with all the certificates and all these basic security things, and then you can go forward with the deeper levels of security. So that was very useful, Asad. Uh, I think the next two questions again we can combine. That is mindset for security testing. What should be your mindset when you are actually trying to do security testing, and then what are
Mhm.
the things to take care. Now, here with my experience, I can say that whenever you are doing any kind of security testing, you are actually going to hack the application as an ethical hacker. Now, if you are doing this, you are doing to hack some application, you have to be very careful that you take a written permission from the owner of the application, or if it is your client or a product manager, whoever has assigned you the permission or authority to go and do security testing, you should always take a documented written permission that you are allowed to do security testing on this application. And then you should also be having a complete awareness on what parts of applications you can go into and do the security testing or penetration testing. So again, you should document it, take permission on that, and of course you should do it on a controlled environment. So Asad, I think anything to add here? What are your thoughts on the mindset and things to take care?
Yeah, before coming on to that, I would just like to add a little informative thing on the tools a beginner can use and explore at this stage. At this stage, I would recommend one tool for the beginners, that is Burp Suite, BURP Burp Suite. It comes in two editions. One is Community Edition, that is the free one, and one is Professional Edition, that is the licensed version. In Community Edition, you can perform most of the attacks, mostly manual, that will cover major pen testing of your application. I personally use this most of the time. It has repeater, intruder, interceptor, sequencer, comparer, everything that is required to perform security testing on any application. On the other hand, there's a professional edition, which comes with a scanner, built-in scanner, which scans your application and looks for vulnerabilities and give you a comprehensive report, which unfortunately doesn't come in community edition. There is Acunetics, which is basically a scanner, which I think comes in three editions. Yeah, standard, which is the free one, premium, and Acunetics 360. Standard obviously has very limited features, but it can still scan your endpoint and gives you all the phone vulnerabilities with its severity and remediation. It is installed as a service in Windows and runs on your browser. Then on the third, we have also as OWASP Zap, which is again a good security testing tool in which you can perform almost all kind of attacks quite easily, and it is also open source. I recommend this after Burpsuit. So there are obviously some other tools as well, like Kali Linux, etc., which we'll look into a comic session. So coming back onto the to your question about the things which
Yeah,
we need to
Asad,
take care when performing.
Asad, before going there, I just want to, make sure that the three tools that you have recommended is Burpsuit, and Burpsuit has a community
Yeah,
edition, so people can start using it free on the community edition. Then we have
yeah,
Acunetics. Again, Acunetics has a free
yeah.
community edition, and then OWASP Lab, and
Zap,
again,
Zap.
it has a community edition, right?
Yeah, it's open source. Yeah,
Great,
OWASP
great.
Zap.
So great. So these are the three tools that you can start exploring. You can start looking at tutorials, and then you can start using them. So this will be very useful. Fine, Asad. So let us go to the mindset and things to take care for security
Yeah,
testing.
yeah. First of all, do not start exploring and using tools without proper knowledge of security testing concepts, vulnerabilities, attacks, and their impacts, etc. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot just read about the vulnerability, not understanding its impact, its remediation, its overall impact on the system. You cannot just go and exploit it on any application. You do not have to do that. And do not pen test any application without proper written permission of all stakeholders. You do not want to be unethical at all at any stage. Like, next, always perform all kind of attacks in a controlled environment. You can, if you can, you dedicate a separate machine for this. Do not use dummy, do not use actual live accounts for testing this. Use dummy data, create dummy data. If possible, if you have a lab setup in your office, it is great. Perform it in the lab, perform it with proper permission, by giving a heads up to all the stakeholders. Set up the environment or any server that you need to prior to performing any activity. Give a proper notice before performing any activity. And again, if your application uses some third party services, you should also take them into confidence that we are going to perform this on your cloud service or whatever. And so they must be aware of your activity. Yeah.
Yeah, that are very valid and great points, Asad. So remember, whenever you have to start with security testing, make sure that you have authority, you have authorization, written permission to do the security testing or penetration or pen testing, as we say, for on the applications from the owner of the application or your product management team, and every stakeholder should be informed. And I think the other important thing is whenever you are trying to learn security testing and you are trying to do it on any application, you are trying to hack an application just for learning security testing, always use some dummy apps and some dummy accounts. Do not start to do security testing on your Facebook primary account. You will end up deleting or deactivating your account, and then there will be a lot of damage. So always use some dummy apps, some dummy accounts. And again, try not to do any kind of hacking or security testing from your personal machines, laptops, or computers. Always have some lab or some remote systems, and you can create some remote systems like on AWS or any other cloud services, so that even if something goes wrong and you have to actually deactivate or let go of the entire system, it is fine. These are some very important tips and things to take care for security testing. So always do it on dummy apps, dummy accounts, and also use some remote system, some other system which are designated for this activities. Am I right, Asad, here?
Yeah, obviously, 100%.
Great, great. So, guys, this session, I wanted to keep it very basic and simple for the complete beginners who are yet to start on security testing, so that we can get some very basic things and points, so that we have these things in our mind and we can take care of all these points while we think or start off security testing. I will try to have more sessions on security testing and discuss on more intermediate and then high level things, and go a little more deeper into security testing. But yeah, this session we are going to have all these basic stuff, so that you get some basic knowledge for starting with security testing. So one of the important things that we discussed today was how to start with security testing, what are the basics, what is security testing, the tools that you can start free of cost. You can start with the community edition, and then what is the mindset, what are the things you should take care while starting with security testing. So Asad, any other general tip, anything else you want to add before we wrap up this session?
Yeah, just like to add some tips for the mindset required for security testing. Like think like malicious hacker. Make your brain a little detective for this purpose. For this, you don't need to study or learn anything, but rather you will explore and develop the ability to exploit any application yourself. If you just start thinking like a hacker or attacker. So when you do this, you will automatically search and explore different techniques and tools you can use to automatically search to find and exploit major vulnerabilities. You will find vulnerabilities in validation messages, and even in the application flows as well. Let's take a common example. When you log in an application, common example of a validation message, when you provide valid email address but invalid password, and see what validation message appears. If it is invalid credentials, then it is fine in terms of security. But when it says invalid password, then you as a pen tester or hacker could easily see the vulnerability in this message. Giving invalid password error means that the user does exist with this email address, but the password is not correct. So you find this vulnerability in the system. Now the next step for you would be to exploit this vulnerability and actually use that email address to guess password of that account by attempting multiple logins with different passwords, a hit and try technique. And in pen testing, we call it the brute force attack. So you see how you manage to find the vulnerability and ultimately exploit it through brute force attack. And you learned one of the major techniques through which you can take over any account. Then at the same time, you should be at least you should be that much equipped with these concepts that you should not you should also be able to suggest remediation for this vulnerability. Like you can suggest that To prevent brute force attack, we can implement account lockout feature or two-factor authorization, capture every request and response and try to perform all kinds of man-in-the-middle attacks. One more thing, you should also enhance your analytical skills as well, because it is very important security testing. You should be able to analyze requests and responses, analyze the pattern of encryption, passing of data from one response to the other, analyzing the parameters. You will then be able to exploit more vulnerabilities. Believe me. Let me give you. We can uh, keep this example for the next session. Yeah, but analytical skills, and thinking like a malicious hacker is very important when you're performing security testing.
Yeah, Asad, I know, being into security testing, you might be having a lot of examples and some really good examples and some very interesting things that you can, share with us. Maybe we can have our next session where you can share all your interesting experiences with security testing and you can give some examples. Uh, I can think of, one of my experience that I was doing security testing. We were into an organization and I was doing security. I was actually doing functional testing of APIs. And
Mhm.
in the response of one of the APIs, suppose if you give some wrong information, it was giving a response that the connection with the database could not be established. And it was
Mhm.
in the response message, in the error message, it was also saying what is the database. It was Oracle connection with the
Uh,
database Oracle XYZ could not be established. So you should take care of these things, that your response should not tell the user what is the database or what is the backend systems you are using, because with this you are
mhm.
taking the hacker one step closer to hacking your system. So you should always
Exactly.
take of these very simple things, that are my responses or are my error messages giving out some information about the backend systems, about the tools or anything
Yeah.
that we are using. So I think this is also, one of the good examples I can think of from my experience.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, look for the level of information disclosed through your application. Information disclosure is yet another vulnerability in security testing, as you mentioned. Look for security headers and information in other headers of the request and response. And then at the same time, you must be good at API testing as well, because most of the time we scan, observe, intercept, and temper these API requests and responses to exploit the system. So yeah, adding this to your point.
Great, Asad. So it was a great session, and I hope all of you have got some good inputs to start your career as penetration or security tester. I will have more episodes on this. If you have any question related to security testing or anything in general that you want me to feature in the next episode of Ask Raghav, you can let me know in the comment section below. And Asad, thank you so much for joining today's session, and I hope we will do a lot of sessions together.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure all mine. We will be doing more sessions, future. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for all of you, thank you for watching this session and never stop learning.